The story begins with silence. A man stands alone, looking at the sky. His face is calm, but his eyes are heavy, like he knows what's coming. There's a strange stillness in the air, as if the world is holding its breath. This man is Bjorn Ironside. Behind him, battles have already been fought. People have died. He's not just thinking about war, he's thinking about something greater. In his mind, he hears it, the call of Valhalla. Not in words, but in feeling. It's not fear. He feels its peace. Because Vikings believed that dying in battle wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something greater. And for Bjorn, this might be the day he steps into that next world. The music is slow. The camera moves gently. We see flashes of his past fighting, leading, standing tall. Now, in this moment, he's preparing for what could be his last stand. The voice in the story doesn't need to shout. It speaks softly, like it already knows how this ends. This is not a story about death. It's a story about a man who was ready to face it with his head held high. Bjorn Ironside wasn't just a warrior. He was the son of Ragnar Lothbrok, one of the most feared and respected Viking kings. From a young age, Bjorn saw the world. Through battle, he learned how to fight before he could grow a full beard. But he was never just chasing war, he was chasing something bigger. He wanted to be remembered. He wanted to earn respect, not just from his people, but from the gods. Bjorn led raids across Europe, crossed seas in wooden ships, and built his own legacy far from home. Wherever he went, people knew his name. Not because he talked loud, but because his actions spoke for him. He wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, lost people, and carried heavy burdens. But in every moment, he stood tall. Bjorn didn't just fight for himself. He fought for his bloodline, for his brothers, and for the Viking way of life. And even though he was born from the shadow of a legend, he carved his own path with blood and fire. The world Bjorn lived in was nothing like today. There were no borders, no safety, and no peace. Every day was a fight to live. The cold winds cut through your skin, and enemies came from every direction. One day you could be feasting, the next you could be dead. The Vikings didn't fear this, they accepted it. They believed that life was short, and what mattered most was how you faced your death. The land was harsh, full of stone, snow, and stormy seas. But these were the places where warriors were born. Bjorn's world was filled with battles against kings, soldiers, and sometimes even his own people. But what made him different was his mind. He didn't just swing a sword. He thought ahead, led his men, and gave them hope. In a time when everyone was trying to survive, he gave them something to believe in. His world didn't forgive weakness, and that's why men like Bjorn had to stay strong even when they were tired, broken, or alone. Time had passed, and Bjorn was no longer the young warrior who once sailed across oceans. His body was tired. Wounds from old battles still ached, and the fire in his eyes had grown quieter, but it had not gone out. Enemies saw this as their chance. They thought the legend was fading. Whispers spread that Bjorn was dead, that he had fallen before the fight even began, but legends don't die in silence. When danger came close, when invaders threatened his home and his people, Bjorn stood up one last time. Even with pain in his bones and blood on his hands, he chose to face them. He knew the odds were against him. He knew this could be the end, but he didn't fight for a victory. He fought to remind the world of who he was. More than that, what he stood for. He returned not as a king chasing glory, but as a man who refused to be forgotten. His enemies had swords. Bjorn had something stronger, purpose. And when his people saw him ride out again, they didn't see a dying man. They saw their leader. One more time, the battlefield was cold and quiet as the sun rose. Then, through the mist, they saw him. Bjorn Ironside, wounded but standing. The enemy froze. They had thought he was already dead. His men stared in disbelief. For a moment, time stopped. Bjorn didn't speak. He didn't need to. Just by showing up, he said everything. He rode forward slowly, armor shining, face calm, and then the fighting began. Arrows flew, swords clashed. The ground shook, but Bjorn kept moving. Every step he took gave his men courage. They fought harder not because they thought they'd win, but because they were fighting beside him. He was more than a warrior now. He was a symbol. And symbols don't break easily. Bjorn was hit again and again. But he didn't fall, not right away. He held on until the very end, making sure his people saw that strength even as his body gave out. When he finally dropped to his knees, it wasn't a defeat. It was a moment that would be remembered forever. His enemies may have struck him down, but they didn't win, because Bjorn had already done what he came to do. He turned fear into bravery. He turned doubt into fire. And even in death, he stood taller than any man around him. Bjorn's body lay still, but no one saw it as a loss. For the Vikings' death in battle was not the end. It was the start of something greater. They believed that warriors who died with courage were taken to Valhalla, a great hall in the sky where heroes lived forever. There they would feast, laugh, and wait for the final fight of all time. So when Bjorn fell, his people didn't cry out in fear, they stood taller. They believed he had gone home, not just to rest, but to sit among the gods. In their hearts, he wasn't gone. His name, his story, and his spirit would live on in every battle cry, in every ship that set sail, in every fire that burned on a cold Viking night. Bjorn Ironside didn't die forgotten. He left this world the same way he lived in it, brave, strong, and proud. Somewhere beyond the clouds, they believed, he was already raising his cup in Valhalla, surrounded by those who came before him.